afternoon. This meeting is now convened at 4:30 p.m. Let the record reflect that a quorum is established. The agenda has the board going into closed session at this point for an employee grievance hearing. However, the employee grievance has been withdrawn. So we will enter into closed session to address the second closed session of this meeting and reconvene afterwards. Bye. Thank you all. Okay, the meeting is now reconvened at 4:59. Let the record reflect that in closed session, we specifically talked through the Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, attorney consultation, and 551.074, personnel. Okay, will you please stand and join us for the pledges of the U.S. and Texas flags? Thank you all. If there are any public officials in the audience this evening, please stand and be recognized. Okay. We will now have our recognitions presented by Mrs. Cheatham and Mrs. Hara. Please come up.
Good evening. Good evening, President Wheeler, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Massey, and audience. This evening, we are proud to recognize exceptional students from Beaumont United High School who represented Beaumont ISD on the international stage through DECA, an organization that prepares emerging leaders and entrepreneurs for careers in marketing, finance, hospitality, and management. After earning a near-perfect presentation score at the Texas State Career Development Conference, Janiyah Banks, Mackenzie Carr, and Jose Garcia advanced to the DECA International Career Development Conference in Atlanta, Georgia, where they competed against some of the nation and the world's top business students in project management, sales project events. While advancing beyond the preliminary rounds is a significant challenge at this prestigious competition, simply qualifying for the international conference is an extraordinary accomplishment. In addition to competing, these students participated in DECA Academy leadership sessions that strengthened their communication, collaboration, and career readiness while connecting with future business leaders from around the globe. Their success reflects the outstanding opportunities available to Beaumont ISD's career and technical education programs and the dedicated mentorship of DECA advisor and business coach Portia Carr, with support from DECA Chapter President Geraldine Hernandez. Please join us in congratulating these outstanding Beaumont United students on this remarkable achievement. And now joining us with our next recognition is Rachel Hara, Deputy Superintendent of Organizational Effectiveness.
Good evening, Superintendent Massey, Board President Wheeler, our entire board of managers, and our audience. Tonight, we have the privilege of recognizing someone who has quietly made an incredible impact on Beaumont ISD, our Chief Financial Officer, Cheryl Hernandez. Ms. Hernandez has recently been nominated to serve on the Texas Association of School Boards Cooperative Board of Trustees, where she will represent school districts across Texas and provide leadership in school finance over the next 3 years. This is a tremendous honor and one that is incredibly well-deserved. A proud graduate of Beaumont Charlton Pollard High School, Ms. Hernandez has devoted more than 36 years to public education, including 22 years serving Beaumont ISD. When she returned to the district in 2015, Beaumont ISD was facing significant financial challenges. Through her steady leadership, integrity, and commitment to doing what's right for students, she has helped guide our district to balance budgets, clean audits, strong financial ratings, and millions of dollars in savings that have been reinvested where they matter most, our students and schools. Those of us who work alongside her know that she is not one to seek the spotlight. She simply comes to work every day, does what's best for Beaumont ISD, and leads with professionalism and heart. Cheryl, thank you for your unwavering dedication to our district, your commitment to serving our students and staff, and for representing Beaumont ISD with excellence across the state. We are so grateful for you.
Thank y'all and congratulations. If you're here tonight for the recognition portion of tonight's meeting, you're welcome to quietly exit the boardroom at this time unless you want to stay to the business portion of our meeting. And thank you for your continued support for BISD. Our next agenda item is public comment. We ask that you are here tonight and we are glad you're here tonight and look forward to hearing from you. Only individuals who signed up in advance to speak will be able to address the board in accordance with board policy. Any person who did not sign up will not be able to speak during public comment, but we do invite you to sign up to speak at our next meeting. I'm requesting that each speaker limit their remarks to 2.5 minutes. We ask that each speaker refrain from naming individuals, especially students, because the identity of students is protected by law. You may, however, say the name of your own child if you wish. Please note that board members will not engage in dialogue or respond in comments during the public comment portion of the meeting. I ask that you please respect the procedures that are in place and the other speakers in the audience and end your comments promptly when your time has expired. Mrs. Smith, please call the first speaker.
I am double checking to make sure no one has walked in. Brenda Greer. Jennifer Moore. Tiffany Perkins.
Good evening, Superintendent Massey, Board President Wheeler, good evening. I'm here today to speak on the successes this district has seen with regard to instruction and classroom management, and to ask that tonight the guardrails you vote on protect the values that make public education in Beaumont so much more than just state-mandated test scores. We have heard Beaumont ISD described as a failing district. Our teachers and administrators have allegedly been described as mediocre, yet this intervention has stemmed from the accountability rating of a single campus, and that accountability system relies heavily on standardized test scores that some of our own children who attend private school are not bound to. While test scores do matter, and they do need to be improved, they are not the whole purpose of a public education. This summer's STAR results showed meaningful academic growth across Beaumont ISD. Those gains remind us that our teachers and campus leaders were making progress, that what they were doing was working, and that they should not be judged solely because of test scores, nor should a single accountability metric define the success of an entire district. That is why I ask that tonight, the guardrails that you vote into place in accordance with Lone Star governance explicitly protect a well-rounded education. Our community is hoping that the athletics are protected, fine arts are protected, career and technical education, advanced academic opportunities, clubs, and extracurricular activities remain priorities alongside academic achievement, that none of this is lost. These programs are not distractions from instruction. They are an essential part of education. I also ask that the guardrails voted on tonight protect meaningful local governance. They should ensure that major district decisions, including in significant changes to instructional models, campus operations, or student opportunities, cannot occur without transparency, public engagement, and meaningful oversight by this elected board. And I do thank you for the attempts to do this, meeting with the community that has happened so far. Thank you for that. Strong leadership and meaningful accountability are not competing values. A superintendent should have the authority to lead. But these guardrails that we'll vote on tonight will ensure that the leadership also remains accountable to the priorities of this community. And a lot of that are the things that we love, like Friday Night Lights and our bands and our football team and all of those things that are important to education, to the whole child, to educating the whole child. By the way, I forgot to introduce myself at first. My name is Tiffany Perkins, and I am a Democratic nominee for State Board of Education. All right, thank you.
That concludes public comment.
At this time, I will turn it over to Superintendent Massey for her presentation on preliminary STAR data, board outcome goals update, followed by her team's reports on strategic compensation.
Good evening, board. Good evening, community. Glad that you are here tonight. I am really excited to share this information, and as Tiffany Perkins shared, she's right. Academics and all of the other parts that make school and children successful should go together. Tonight, the focus is academics, because I have preliminary data to show you by campus, which you have not seen yet. So I want to show that to you. You should know, though, that the arts, AP classes, athletics, all of those things are going to continue, and we're going to continue to cheer on our kids in UIL and all sorts of other exciting things. So tonight's focus, though, is on the academics that do need to be improved, which is what brought us here for this intervention. So we have a few items that we need to approve tonight, and the first one is the vision. The board had a conversation about this vision. You guys got to give input on the front side of it, and it narrowed down to this one thing. In Beaumont ISD, every student will be known, supported, challenged, and prepared. And I believe this does encompass the whole child, not just academics, but obviously includes academic challenge and preparation for the future. So this is a vision that I do hope we approve tonight. Let's look at the goals. So we are going to set 2 of the 3 goals tonight if you do choose to approve them. 3 goals are required in an intervention under the Lone Star governance, and the first one is 3rd grade reading, the second one is 3rd grade math, and the last one is CCMR. We will bring you CCMR in August, but tonight we're going to look at board goal 1 and board goal 2. So I want to remind you of this graph that Mrs. Perete showed you when we were back in June. I particularly want you to notice that the district administration prior to this intervention had set a goal for 36% for 3rd grade reading, to go from 32 to 36%. Where we actually landed in preliminary scores right now, we will get official scores in August, but this is pretty official, is 27%. So we dropped a little bit in 3rd grade reading, and I want to now, as our board, to reset the stage for expectations for the next 5 years. That being said, this is the 3rd grade goal for reading that I would like us to approve tonight. The percentage of 3rd grade students whose scores meets grade level or above on STAR reading will increase from the 27% we have right now in June 2026 to 65% by August 2031. And in this chart, you can see the 5-year trend starting right now at 2027 to move to 32% in year 1, 41% in year 2, 50% in year 3, 59% in year 4, and 65% in year 5. 65% was the original goal that the administration had set prior to us be coming in our seat. And we kept the 65%. At the bottom, it also shows you by group what we hope to achieve as well. So not just overalls, but in each specific student group. I'm going to move on to the math goal. This is the chart you saw in June. The previous administration had left third grade math at 26.3%, and we're hoping to jump to 30%. Currently, with the preliminary scores, we're at 23% for third grade math. So we are at a deficit from where we thought we would be. We need to jump a little bit higher. Now, I do want to point out that 52% was the 5-year goal from the administration prior to us getting put in place. We're actually going to push hard to exceed that goal. So we believe that in 3 years, the percentage of third grade students whose score meets grade level or above on STAR math will increase from 23% in June 2026 to 60% by August 2031. So increasing that by 8 percentage points. The year trend, it starts us at 23% here. We believe we can jump up to 27% in year 1, 36% in year 2, 45% in year 3, 54% in year 4, and then up to 60% in year 5. I will tell you that it is difficult to close achievement gaps in such close succession. It's just a very big challenge. It's easier to close growth gaps, but it's much more difficult to have students reach grade level. That is what this is telling you, that we are going to hit grade level, not growth. That is an important difference when you're looking at scores. We're not talking about growth, we're talking about achievement. I also want to declare that these first 2 years right here, year 1 and year 2, I believe we might not hit those 2 goals. And that's because we need to develop a few years of doing our model to see sustainability and payoff. Third grade, though, in year 3, I think we actually will hit that 45% and continue up that trajectory. So just kind of like a heads up that even though we have a 5-year trend data to show you, it doesn't mean every year is going to hit that exact mark. But by the 3rd year, I believe we will certainly be on track. Now we also need to look at approving guardrails. These are the board guardrails that you all agreed to, and I want to share them again with you so you can remind yourself what we all discussed and what you guys believe should be good board guardrails. And I'm just going to read them as is. The board, either collectively or through the actions of individual board members, shall not. You shall not overlook the importance of monitoring and evaluating its own performance and the implementation of its decisions. You shall not perform or appear to perform any of the expressed or delegated responsibilities of the superintendent. You shall not represent or appear to represent, through their words or actions, the voice of the entire board on matters that the board has not publicly adopted. Now, the superintendent guardrails. The guardrails for the superintendent are put in place. The shall not is there so that students' goals will be achieved. So the first one is the superintendent shall not allow the use of non-district approved materials in any classroom. This is because instructional alignment is essential for improving student achievement. And I think you remember we are aligning curriculum for 3rd through 10th grade ELA and math across the entire district. All of the curriculum in 3rd grade math for every school will look the same, and they will have the same lesson. That is equitable and allows for students to get great instruction regardless of the teacher. Because when classrooms use different materials, different expectations, and different approaches, student outcomes become dependent on a teacher that a child might happen to have, rather than the strength of a system. We believe this systemic strength is going to be what makes the biggest difference in student outcomes. There are great teachers in Beaumont ISD. They are spread out across many campuses. We want every student to have a great teacher in Beaumont ISD. Guardrail number 2 for the superintendent is to not allow the number of D or F rated campuses to increase or remain the same. This guardrail exists because every student deserves access to a high-performing school regardless of where they live or which campus they attend. Because persistent low performance at the campus level undermines equitable access to opportunity. Guardrail number 3, the superintendent shall not allow the number of ineffective teachers to increase or remain the same. This guardrail exists because teacher effectiveness is the single most important school-based factor influencing student achievement, and because students cannot consistently achieve ambitious academic outcomes without access to effective instruction. One more, so the district will continuously strengthen teacher effectiveness through recruitment, development, coaching, support, accountability, and retention of high-performing educators. Now, what I want to share with you is the preliminary scores by campus. Remember that preliminary means these are pretty much the scores. The state of Texas does multiple additional tabulations of the scores to ensure that they are right, and then they give us official scores in August. So when the official scores come in, you might see a point up or down in a school here or there, but for the most part, the scores you're going to see here are pretty right on. I'm going to show you in a way that you don't normally see. So before I start telling you what these scores you're about to see look like, I want to remind you of a couple of factors. I got asked recently on an interview about the difficult truth, and this is it. This district has failed the city, it's failed our teachers, and it's most importantly failed our students, because we have not put systems in place to help teachers become the best they can be, and in turn create students who can get outcomes that match or exceed any other district school. The temptation is to confuse visible motion with genuine health. Just because you seem like you're an active district doing many things, having many things happening, we're doing this, 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 does not mean you have genuine health. So just movement does not mean academic outcomes. An institution can survive quietly while at the same time losing the very purpose for which they exist, which is our kids. This should never be about what adults need, what adults want, what adults think they need. It should always be about number one, what is best for our clients. Those are kids. That is the goal of this district. And if you're anything like me, when you see these scores, it is not going to make you happy. So what is the state of Beaumont ISD right now? Here's the mark I want to set up for you before I start showing you these scores. The state produces scores on a scale. Either you're in the did not meet category, which is the very bottom. It's you got 0 questions right to some level of questions that are at the bottom of the scale. Approaches is that very next level above did not meet. It's a super low bar and it's near the bottom. It means the student did not pass, they are not at grade level, but they got in the level of the difficulty of the test somewhere around approaches. Meets and masters are the only 2 categories we will ever communicate about in Beaumont ISD. I will never show you approaches numbers because those are false positives. No student in approaches actually passed the test. That is not a consideration you should ever think about. Meets is even a bar that is sporadic. Meets does not mean a student made a 70 or higher or an 80 or higher. In many categories, it means they didn't actually pass the test. But it means the difficulty of the test was at such a level that to pass this test, and in some cases, for example, English 2 this past year, the cut score for meets started at 41. So you could get a 41 as your percentile score in the English 2 exam and be considered meets, a 41. That range went all the way to a 91. So a student who scored a 41 and a student who scored a 91 got meets for English 2. That range matters because it's showing the difficulty level of the test compared to all the students in the state of Texas, how they're scoring on this same test. It's not a true a 40 out of 100. They rate the questions by difficulty. So some tests have more difficult questions and some tests don't. The third grade math test, for example, starts their meets category at 61. So where the English 2 started down here at 41, the third grade math starts at 61. Still not what we would consider passing by a normal standard, but because it's their first STAR test and the difficulty of the questions, they lower the rating to a 61 as your meets. It still doesn't mean that kids who get meets aren't doing well. It means that if you get meets, you are doing pretty well for this average across the state of Texas, okay? That's just some context, but I do want you to understand that we are focused on meets and masters only because that is what is set as grade level by the state of Texas. I'm about to share some hard truth with you. So I want you to have this statement in the back of your mind. People rarely attack truth because it's false. They attack truth because accepting it requires changing something they love or something that they were responsible for. So when people push back, that's probably one of the two reasons. So I'm going to give you some Domain 1 scores. Domain 1, the state of Texas sets out their domains in Domain 1, Domain 2A, Domain 2B, and Domain 3. 4 categories that decide on state accountability. I'm going to show you all 4 in succession in a 4-year trend for every school. I want you to know what it means, though. Domain 1 is just easy as said, it's achievement. Did the students meet grade level expectations? Did they master the content? How many students scored at grade level or higher? So we are looking for that meets and masters number when you're looking at Domain 1. So what you see in percentages are only the kids or the number of kids who hit meets or masters. That's it. No growth, just meets or masters. So my example is here. A 3rd grade math student could score a 21. A 4th grade, that same student in 4th grade could score a 58. There is a big amount of growth between a 21 and a 58 for the same student. That you would see in Domain 2. But in Domain 1, that does not matter. Here, the 50, it's a 58 there, 50. 58 does not meet the grade level standard for 3rd grade math. The meet standard was 61. So in this case, the student would not meet grade level standards, even though they grew a bunch from 3rd to 4th grade. That will be taken into consideration in Domain 2, but in Domain 1, it's only that 59. And because 61 is the cutoff for meets in 3rd grade math, For this year, it could change for next year, but for this year it was 61. Then this student would not have met standard. So here I want to show you, by campus, the Domain 1 scores. You can see the rating and the actual number. What I'm about to show you on page 2 is the 4-year trend for only Domain 1. So you're going to see the last 4 years and the percent difference between 2023 and 2026. And because you can see the 4-year trend, you can see schools that moved from one category to another. Schools that went down, stayed the same, or went up. I do want to point out that the 2 high schools, which look very good here and are very good for this year, based on the way the scores were set for high school. I'm going to give you some information at the end of this session to help you have some perspective on those 2 scores, because it's about to change. Right now, those are real. In a year, they won't be. So I will help you see what I mean by that. This is Domain 1. I am now going to move to Domain 2A. 2A. So academic growth. Did this student grow as much as similar students across Texas? It rewards acceleration regardless of the starting point. So a student who started at the 98th percentile and made it to the 100th percentile, or a student who started at the 5th percentile and moved to the 25th percentile, they both dramatically could grow, and they both deserve credit, and they both get credit. Students who grow, and you get points for that. It doesn't matter if you started at the very, very bottom or at the very, very top. As long as you're holding or growing, if you're that high and you're holding, you get points for that. And depending on the 5th percentile, how far they grow, they get a number of points depending on how far they grow. So Domain 2A is academic growth. Here are Domain 2A for us this year in preliminary results. Now you can see Domain 1 beside Domain 2A. What you see in a typical district is that Domain 2A is a much higher score than Domain 1, because typically schools are growing faster than they're achieving. What's surprising here is that that is not the case for most schools in Beaumont ISD. Most schools in Beaumont ISD have very similar scores from Domain 1 to Domain 2. It means they're not growing and they're not achieving. Now I'm about to show you the 4-year trend for just Domain 2A by campus. And the number of points, that is the difference between 2023 and 2026. This is the most infuriating to me, because this should never happen. You don't even have to show achievement in Domain 2A. You just have to show you care enough to see a kid grow. I do not know what happened last year, that not only did we not grow, but the number of points that dropped between 2023 to 2026 is excessive. I've never seen anything like it. This is not significant growth, no matter how you look at it. Which is why these guardrails focus on academics. So let's look at Domain 2B. It is relative performance. This is how well our school is serving students compared to kids that are similar in other schools. So similar like schools competing together in the same category. Compares schools like a school that has a 92% economically disadvantaged rate will not be compared to a school that has an 8% economically disadvantaged rate. Like economically disadvantaged rates fall into categories that are similar. It actually gives you an opportunity in Domain 2B to have a lower standard to get to an A or a B or a C. It gives you this opportunity. And rightly so, by the way. It's a really good domain. And it just takes any excuse away. Because it means you're only competing with schools like you, no other school. So here are our Domain 2B schools. And you can see Domain 1, Domain 2A, and Domain 2B now aligned side by side. Bingman doesn't have scores because Bingman is always aligned to whatever the district gets. Bingman is an early childhood center, and they serve the entire district, so they don't have star tests. They get the scores of the district. Now I'm going to show you the 4-year trend for Domain 2B. And you can also see the difference, positive, negative, or flat, on schools that you were competing with like schools, where we fell. Finally, Domain 3. So Domain 3 is actually closing the gaps. Who are we leaving behind? It's pushing you to pay attention to significant groups that aren't the big picture group. This is just an example. If your white students are at 92%, but you have these other populations much lower, it's asking you and forcing you to actually account for those groups. So this is an important part to show that we're not just depending on a certain population of students to get our scores. Every single student group must be paid attention to, coached, supported, given everything they need to be able to be successful. So our Domain 3 looks like this. I will show you Domain 3 in a 4-year trend. With the difference between the drops in 2023 to 2026. And if this doesn't sober you up, I don't know what will. Now the next slide I'm going to show you has all domains together with 2025 compared to 2026 in overall accountability. Remember, none of this is actually the scores of the school. This is actually the scores of the school, this last column. So you see Domain 1, Domain 2A, 2B, and 3. I'll tell you just for the sake of you knowing, but if you look at Domain 2A and 2B, you don't take or average both of those scores. TEA actually allows the highest of these two scores to be the one used to tabulate the scores. And then when they pick the highest, for example, we'll just use King Collegiate. In Domain 2A, they got an 81. In Domain 2B, they got a 97. It's basically like that 81 doesn't exist. The 97 gets to be the one that rises to the tabulation. And then if you look at Domain 1 and Domain 2B, since that's their highest, then they get to select from those two scores on whichever is highest. Because it's the same, of course it's a 97. Had one been higher than the other, such as Westbrook had a 79 in Domain 1, their highest in Domain 2 is an 83. So the 83 is what gets tabulated for their scores. The 75 doesn't count, and the 79 doesn't count anymore. Only the 83. And then it gets tabulated with their Domain 3, which is where they wound up with an 83. Now, if you notice, I have some special schools blocked out for you. There's a rule in the Texas Education Agency called a forced score. And we have two schools that are forced. I blocked out alternative because it follows the rule, but because they're an alternative school, they don't have to be in the rule. So here's the rule. If you get a D or an F in 3 of the 4 domain areas, you are mandated by the Texas Education Agency to receive a 69, even if the average would have been higher. So this school, Marshall Middle School, they would have had a 73. That is their actual score. But because they have a D in Domain 1, a D in Domain 2A, and a D in Domain 3, they are forced to a 69. They don't get to keep the 73. It gets dropped. The 69 is what remains. Now, remember I told you these are preliminary scores. There could, by chance, be an option for this 69 in Marshall to jump to a 70. If it happens to jump to a 70, that means Domain 1 would be a C, Domain 2 would be a 64, 77, a 64. It means they'd have 2 C's, 2 D's. They would not fall into this forced D anymore. They would get to keep their 73. So there is a chance that Marshall won't be forced, but if they are, the only thing that will count is a 69. The rule is the same for F's. So if you have 3 out of the 4 domains that are an F, such as Guess Elementary, and you didn't score an F by natural tabulation, like Guess, they had a 61. But because 3 of their domains are F, they are forced to a 59. This is from 2025 overall scores to 2026 overall scores. And the difference in 1 year between the drops and the gains. Congratulations to Peach MacArthur. Even though they're still a 58, that is a significant improvement. Congratulations to Beaumont United, significant improvement. And Westbrook, good improvement. Okay, I have one more thing to share with you about these scores. Remember I told you about the high school? Let me give you a quick lesson. Domain 3, in high school only, has lagging data. Lagging means whatever the data is for this year will not go into effect until the year after. So I'm trying to show you here last year's graduates from 2025 who have been out of high school for a year. Their data right now is what's counting for this current accountability for Beaumont United and Westbrook and King. King is a non-factor because they're a 97. But Beaumont United and Westbrook are factored. This is important because last year's data is on this year's state accountability. So it's the same. The 26 graduates that just walked the stage in May, those kids are going to count on next year's data. Okay? This school year, for 2026, the school year we're in right now, the way that Domain 3 is tabulated for high school is changing. This is the first year that it's going into effect. I'm going to show you what that will look like. And that means when we get to 2028, the scores that will happen at the end of this year will show up in the 2028 data. It's a very difficult thing to comprehend because it's pushed off a year. Normally, it wouldn't even be a big issue, but it's a big issue. And here's why. So same thing, let me show you why. Look at this first set of data. Here's your 2025 graduates from last year. Remember, this is all their data. It's not the ones who just graduated data. It's last year's data. They got 78 points in Domain 3 as a district. And that's because 50% of the points came from putting kids in a prep course for college and kids passing that prep course. When it came to actually passing a college-ready exam, our students scored 13% passing. IBCs are industry-based certifications. It means they started on a pathway in high school for, let's just say, welding. And they went through the welding pathway from freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. They received a certificate that said, I finished my welding pathway, and they passed that pathway. They get a certificate. That's important because those numbers count. It's not that complicated, but it's very strategic in making sure every freshman enters into a pathway that will help them get certifications. For us, and it's not that hard to do, by the way, there's a ton of pathways. That's what LIT does, a ton of this. And we do a lot of it through LIT. So 34% of our district earned IBCs. These three categories together allowed for this 78 to come into play. Now, because these rules were also in effect this past school year, this whole last year, these rules were in effect. That prep course counted. That means when we get into the data that's going to come next year, it's still going to look pretty good. It's going to look like this, something like that, okay? But the prep course this current year is now being removed. This 50% will no longer be allowable. This school year that we're in right now, that point is off the table. And I'm about to show you what would happen to Beaumont United and Westbrook if that were the case right now. So you could see significantly how this is going to affect our scores in the future if we don't do something serious about it now. In 2027, only TSI, ACT, and SAT will count plus IBCs. If that were the case, we would be at a 34%. 34% is the reality without the prep course. I'm telling you this because the state of Texas saw that many districts were playing the game of prep course. Let's just get them in a class, the teacher can pass them, and they'll get the points. And then it'll look like our kids are college ready. But in reality, this is proof of college readiness right here, 13%. That's what's proof of college readiness. And most of that 13% truthfully came from King Collegiate Academy because those students can't start their college classes until they pass TSI. Most of that came from collegiate. So if we were looking ahead and pretended like this was 2028, here's the real scores you just saw from Westbrook and Beaumont. 2026 right here. That's what you just saw. That's their overall closing the gap. That's just closing the gap. Domain 3. They had an 83 and a 69. Here's what it would have been. It would have been a 65 in Domain 3, and it would have been a 57. I'm showing you this not to downgrade Beaumont United and Westbrook. I'm showing you this to say we're not as college ready as it looks. It means the overall accountability would not be an 83 for Westbrook. They would be a C. And it would be a C for Beaumont United, just a little bit lower. We just need to put reality in place. Mr. President?
Since we're talking about high schools, I read an article this morning. Can you hear me?
No, I don't hear Jeff's mic.
Hello, is this thing on? No? Okay. I read an article this morning about King Collegiate and that we're closing King Collegiate. That was news to me. Could you
Yeah, that,
expand
you know, I'm sure everyone just believes everything that's in the news. But no, that article was 100% completely false. So no, of course we are not closing King Collegiate Academy. We will never close King Collegiate Academy. However, I do want to share, now that you asked that, I have some things to share with you because I'm not going to just drop these bombs on you and then tell you, here we go, good luck to us. I want to show you a couple of things that we have ready to go in place that I think should encourage you that we can hit our goals. So the work that's already in progress is the accelerated instructional model, which is the model I showed you when I first got here, AIM. It's the same model that Houston used for their whole last 3 years, that they're continuing to use. It is a reactionary approach to 3rd through 10th grade, trying to catch them up, closing the gaps. It does work. In my opinion, it is not going to be sustainable. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Just a reminder, these are the things that are included in AIM, in the accelerated instructional model, which does work. It's just not sustainable. You can't always react to 3rd, 4th, 5th. Every time they take a test, you're just reacting to try to help them get over the 3rd grade hump. There are other things that must be done. But here are all the things that are happening in the AIM, and they are great things. They're going to help. But that can't be the only thing. One of the things about AIM that is really significant are these 2 new positions, which is the resident teacher and the student support coach, who are going to help us not to miss a single lesson. Even if a teacher is absent or not in place or the vacancy still exists, these people step in and teach the exact lesson that the regular teacher would be teaching, so a student never misses instruction, even while they're waiting for a vacancy to be filled. And that will be the case starting this next school year.
That's only...
That's for reading and math. That's right. Regular substitutes will probably put in place for other classes, but for reading and math, our most critical subjects, that's correct. The AIM model works on a 90-minute schedule. It is 50 minutes of direct instruction, which is very engaging, very fast-paced. It is a 10-minute short assessment, and then that assessment lets the teacher know how to differentiate the next 30 minutes so that the kids who did very, very well leave the room and get different instruction with one of their student support coaches who have answer keys, and the students who struggled stay in the room and close gaps right then and there. They don't wait. Every day they're closing gaps. Every day the high kids are getting stronger. Every day the low kids are getting higher.
Quick question. So we still will have substitutes inside the district?
You will still have substitutes in the district, just not in reading and math. Reading and math will all be internal. These are the engagement strategies that we're going to be using from pre-K through 12th grade. Every single teacher will be responsible to engage students regardless of if you're in the AIM model in reading and math or you're just a teacher in BISD. Everyone will be trained on these engagement strategies. We call them the Fab Five. The differentiation we call lead. So if your students come home and they start saying, I was a learner today, or I was an L today, it means they struggled with the objective, they stayed in the room and got more teaching from the teacher on that objective. If they say they were an E or an A, it means they mastered that objective, they left the room, and they did a little bit harder content with the same objective in another room with a student support coach that has an answer key. Once a month, and we have not communicated about what designer really looks like, but this is going to be super exciting because instead of just letting the mastered kids do designer work, we're actually going to have a special day once a month where the entire school does project-based learning in teams around reading and writing for a half a day once a month. And it's going to be awesome. So stay tuned. But we're not done because I just told you the 3rd through 10th grade aim is going to be part of the solution. It is not a good long-term solution. Project Accelerate is the thing that's going to make Beaumont ISD stand on its own for years to come. And Project Accelerate, just imagine this. What if 90% of second graders walked into 3rd grade already reading at or above 3rd grade level? What if 90% of second graders walked into 3rd grade already knowing and understanding every multiplication fact and how they relate to division? They don't learn it in 3rd grade, they learn it in 2nd grade. So we will accelerate Kinder 1 and 2 over the next 3 years. The kindergartners that will go into the school right now in 3 years will be taking their first STAR test in 3rd grade. We will prepare them like never before, and we're doing it in a variety of ways, and I'm going to give you a few. We're raising the rigor and expectations of instructional delivery. For the most part, all instructional leaders have put all their efforts in coaching and feedback on 3rd through 10th grade because that's where your tested subjects are. So everybody walks reading and math in 3rd through 10th grade. We have hired an executive director who is 100% focused on this initiative, Project Accelerate, to grow and sustain leaders, teachers that can deliver the highest quality of instruction in pre-K through 2nd grade, focusing on reading and math. We are redesigning the curriculum so that it is accelerating our students. When the curriculum teaches level 1, surface level, we're going to dip it to level 2 and level 3 with examples and push. We're going to ensure that there is strategic planning time for these teachers to plan together, to practice their lessons in front of an administrator, in front of their teams before they get in front of kids. They're going to be on the coaching and feedback cycle just like any other 3rd through 10th grade STAR teacher would be. They may not be excited about that yet, but they're going to be. Lots of coaching and feedback. Most of the time they got ignored, not here. There's going to be a strategic administrator placed over pre-K through 2 for that very reason. We are going to provide specialized training, breaking out when we meet in principal meetings. Secondary and 3rd and up will have their own training, and pre-K through 2 will have their own training so that they get very strategic, moving forward in the right direction. They will be monitored weekly just like everyone else. I'm not going to talk about the combined TEACs yet. We'll get there in August. NWEA assessment has only been given in 3rd through 5th grade in Beaumont. It is available from kindergarten to 10th grade. We will do it in kindergarten through 10th grade. It is the only reliable assessment, and it is the only assessment that we will look at to rate our 3rd grade reading scores and our 3rd grade math scores by our board goals. So NWA will be very important data. It is a national exam that cannot be cheated on, especially for little ones, but it's just impossible because different questions pop up for different children and every other question is different. So it is a very reliable exam to depend on for data. But here's the most exciting thing. Second grade, instead of going to a traditional summer school, we're going to ask all second grade parents this summer and every summer after to commit to a summer bridge camp where we have 4 to 6 weeks of summer camp that will be a summer school half day in the mornings that will only focus on reading, writing, and math. We will teach second graders all the tools they need to be successful to write the way the test expects students to write in third grade, so it becomes their natural state and they don't have to learn something so crazy new to them in third grade. We are assessed by third grade. We should prepare students for it. Early literacy is the sustainable way to do business. 3rd through 10th, we're going to do as well. But our bang for our buck is actually in K, 1, and 2. And of course, pre-K goes along with that. So the foundation, though, of Projects Accelerate, the yellow is our concentration right now. But in the years following, there are other parts of Project Accelerate that are going to come about. We know we have to focus on college, career, and military readiness by exam. Even military, you want to go into the military, you don't get to just sign up for that. You have to take a test and pass it. Right, Mr. Ibarra. So we have to prepare kids to be able to pass those tests. And I love the military, by the way. 2 brothers that were in the Army. My dad was in the Army. And it's been a fantastic experience for them to be able to get an education following that career for free. That is a great experience for kids. I would love to see them have that option. But we also know we've got to get our numbers up in these pathways so IBC actually counts for 100% of our points. And then we really push college and career so that our kids can advance in passing TSI exams, SAT exams, ACT exams. But even college and career readiness starts in pre-K. We teach kids how to read and write, and there is no stopping them. We will also move acceleration in middle school math across the board and do it really well so kids aren't advancing and skipping years when they probably shouldn't have. Early college will be created this year. We'll do a year of planning, and this is probably the mistake that the examiner made today, is that I did report that we are going to open an early college on both Beaumont United and Westbrook. That's for the purpose of students who want to be in sports, but King Academy does not offer sports. So kids who want to be in sports and early college can do both on their campus. That doesn't mean MLK is shutting down. No, it is not. In fact, not only are they keeping their early college, and Ms. Ferris will continue to lead that school, but in a year or 2 at the most, we plan to expand the excitement at Martin Luther King and give the students that are in the collegiate there an opportunity to add students by making it a 6th through 12th magnet for fine arts, visual, performing arts, and STEAM technology. We want to see our kids flourish. So we're going to be able to have 3 high schools that are all 3 doing amazing things and giving opportunities for our kids in unique ways. Now, do you have any other questions?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, ma'am. I got some questions. First, I want to thank you for having the vision, the projection, the honesty, just to get us where we need to be, you and your staff, because you guys have been working extremely hard. And Rachel smiled when we saw the arts come up, and it's going to be a great thing. One thing that I have a lot of questions, I'm not going to hog the mic, but just the project acceleration, how will those kids be identified to go there?
No.
During the summer,
Oh, no, it's every second grader.
or it's just every second grader?
Yes, we're going to actually open 2 elementary schools that are only for second grade for summer. So every single elementary school will be on Project Accelerate right starting this school year, August 12th.
So the second graders will be going to school.
They're gonna do their second grade year, and then we're gonna ask them to go to a bridge camp to bridge between second and third grade.
Yeah, that was my question. I may have not asked it correctly, but so how will they be identified to go to that camp?
All of them are gonna be asked to go. Every second grader is gonna be asked to go.
Asked to go.
Yes. They won't.
Yeah,
It
I
won't
know
be.
that's
It will not be mandatory. It will be
Okay.
optional. But the goal is that because we're going to open it for every second grader, no matter how high they are in their academic gains or how struggling they are, we will make sure that they get what they need so that all of them have skills that will have them risen to the point of third grade level when they walk into third grade.
And they'll be ready for that test.
That's what I believe.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And just imagine in 3 years. Now, this first year, just imagine second graders are only going to have this for 1 year. But just imagine they're getting this type of push of coaching. Their teachers are the best in the nation because nobody focuses on pre-K through 2. That's not true. I can't say that. And my experience is that most people don't focus on pre-K through 2. Most people focus on 3rd through 10th. I'm very guilty of it myself. But if we really want to see change, sustainable change,
Right.
kids won't walk into 3rd grade trying to figure out how to read. They will walk into 3rd grade reading, writing, doing math. Privileged kids have that already because their parents do that. I want every kid to have that access. Every kid, regardless. And there are many other things I'm hoping for that I don't have time to talk about tonight that are inside of that family of Project Accelerate around the pre-K through 2 mindset. But it's going to take more than just the work we're doing. It really is going to take a village to ensure that kids show up at school every day, that there's a group of people who are committed to making that happen.
Very important. Thank you.
Good evening. I want to first off say thank you for that information. You almost answered my question in that little spill you gave, but thanks for the data, because seeing that data, seeing it in all 3 domains, not just one, and seeing what the need for a reset, need for an intervention. And I love that I watch you and your team, you're looking at the entire picture, you're looking at what's going to happen in the future, and you're planning for that, which when I first started looking into data, there's statistics on early literacy. And my question was, why don't we just, there's issues that arise from this. So root cause analysis says early literacy here, right? So what was that motivation that you said, you know what, I'm going to do it, because I don't think a lot of districts out there are doing it?
I'm going to tell you the truth. When I looked at the scores and I saw the 5-year trajectory, our board goals, this is what did it for me. When we see the board goals, and I actually have a slide that you guys have seen, but I didn't bring it tonight, that shows where Houston is 3 years into their 5-year goal. And in reading they have grown 8 points in 3 years. When I looked at our trajectory, I saw that in 3 years, we needed to grow 23 points. 23 points. Houston only grew 8 in 3rd grade reading. And our trajectory triples that. So when I looked at math, Houston only grew 7 points in math in 3 years. We have to grow 22. Again, a triple. I literally fell on my knees in my time with God, and I said, I can't do this. This is impossible. This can't be done. And I'm just going to be truthful. It was like the Spirit fell, and it was a number of ideas, just bam, 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 bam. Like, Sandy, you can do this. This district will do it. This is how you do it. Stop focusing on everything being 3rd through 10th and focus on pre-K and K1 and 2. It was just like the easiest thing that nobody's doing. It's just so simple. The answer is so simple. It's just, we're so focused on tested grade areas that we just don't think about it. And it was literally like the Spirit of God just fell on me and said, yes, you can, and this is how it's going to happen. That's how I know in the 3rd year, we may not see it year 1, we may not see it year 2, but in the 3rd year, when the group of kindergartners right now wind up in 3rd grade and they've been in this system for kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade, they go to that summer bridge camp their year, boom. They're going to be reading and writing, doing math, and they're going to be teaching their siblings, teaching their parents. It's going to be incredible.
Thank you, and thank you for being proactive.
Thank you, Lord.
The last couple of days you've been with assistant principals and principals. Maybe just share a little update as far as like where you guys are at for this upcoming school year, confidence level in teaching. We obviously in May walked through some of the campuses, and it was like, in my opinion, it was a little eye-opening, jarring. I was like, what in the world? Where are you guys at? Excitement, confidence, hired new teachers on, new principals. I've seen some of that on the internet. If you could share just some of that with us.
I would actually love, if she doesn't mind, Miss Coleman, would you like to come up? Come here. Miss Coleman is one of our principals. She was here before the intervention, and she's still here, thank goodness. And why don't you answer Darian's question?
All right, so good evening, Ms. Coleman, Principal, Dishman Elementary. So as principals, we have been sitting down, collaborating, and we are excited. Most of us have been here a long time, and so we're at the point now, it's like, okay, well, let's see. And so we're optimistic, we're ready, inspired, and ready to get the model going so that we can see the changes that we need to have in Beaumont ISD. Yep. Okay, so for the Project Accelerate, whenever she introduced it, just knowing 3rd graders from 2nd grade are going to 3rd grade, knowing how to read. Because listening to teachers, they're not prepared, they don't know multiplication facts. And so with the Project Accelerate starting in kindergarten, if we could, use vertical alignments and get them to where they're at the end of kindergarten in February, where they start on 1st grade, and then go to 1st grade, start reviewing, that puts them ahead, so then whenever they get to 3rd grade, they're ready. So it's exciting to see, and you almost have a little like, how is that gonna work? But then whenever we saw the model and how it's lined out, I could see that it works. That's just like with teaching a little kid Spanish. Like if you start real early, you can catch them. So if we start early, building in that, I think that they'll be ready by 3rd grade.
I told the principals they didn't have to come to these meetings, but I saw her walk in, so. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
I don't have a question. I have more of a statement. While Ms. Ferris and those kids, students at King are doing a magnificent job. And
they sure are.
It's very quite impressive. Just on behalf of parents, of students that are in the district, thank you for including that early college on their actual campus where they have the opportunity to do those other UIL activities. I think a lot of parents are going to be on board with that. I think that's an awesome idea. I can't wait to see the implementation of it.
Me too. It is exciting. Okay, if you guys don't have any other questions, I'd like to invite Amber Kent up to give you your strategic compensation workshop. It's just informational, just so you know where we're going.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. President Willard and Board of Managers. Tonight, I'd like to provide you an update on Beaumont ISD's work to develop a strategic compensation system for our teachers and campus leaders. At its core, strategic compensation is not simply about compensation. It is an investment strategy. It aligns our resources with the people and practices that have the greatest impact on student achievement. As Superintendent Massey shared earlier, we know that research tells us that the most significant school-based factors influencing student achievement is teacher effectiveness. Just as important, we know that effective teachers are developed and supported through instructional leadership. That is why we want to focus on 3 priorities. First, being instructional excellence. We want to recognize and reinforce the instructional practices that lead to improved student outcomes. Second, we want to grow leadership. Strong principals and assistant principals create the conditions where teachers receive meaningful coaching, support, and feedback that helps them to grow professionally. And third, strategic investment. Rather than using compensation as a one-size-fits-all approach, we're intentionally designing a system that aligns compensation with district priorities and our commitment to improving student outcomes. We know that we believe if we invest in instructional excellence, growing leadership, and being strategic about how we reward our employees, then we know that we can attract and retain exceptional educators in Beaumont ISD. We will strengthen teaching and leadership, which will ensure that the students of Beaumont ISD are known, supported, challenged, and prepared, and we see those academic gains, and we don't see data that says that we have not done right by students in Beaumont ISD. So tonight's presentation is intended to provide awareness of that work and to prevent, and it's not intended to present finalized compensation model. Over the coming months, we will continue to develop that framework, engaging stakeholders, reviewing best practices, and refining the metrics that will support the compensation model. So we're going to develop this in 3 phases. Phase 1 will have us, we will be working together on developing the principals and assistant principals performance metrics. Phase 2, we will develop and adopt the teacher incentive allotment aligned and approved compliant teacher metrics for our teacher strategic compensation plan. And then we will replace what is known as the traditional pay ladder step, and we will replace that with the performance pay system. We will do this by blending the teacher incentive allotment, teacher retention allotment, and other funding sources to ensure that we have financial sustainability for strategic compensation. I want to share with you all the timeline for implementing our strategic compensation model. So we're going to begin with our leaders, our principals and assistant principals. So July through September, we are working on creating the effectiveness framework for each of those roles, for the principals and assistant principals, and that will happen in this school year, 26-27. October through May, we will engage a variety of stakeholders, ensuring that the metrics that we have selected for performance are aligned with the outcomes we want for our leaders. The implementation, we will capture data and assign initial effectiveness ratings beginning in 26-27 and every year thereafter. We will then implement a compensation-based effectiveness rating with a hold harmless protection. What that means is that we will, if a principal's pay, I'm going to just give an example. If a principal's pay is at a base of $100,000 And they have an effectiveness level that puts that pay at a lower scale. We will, in 27-28, hold that salary at $100,000. So we will not drop them in the first 2 years. So we will hold harmless for our principals to give them and assistant principals to give them the opportunity to grow and develop and be supported in our system. Compensation will fully be assigned to their effectiveness levels beginning in 29-30. So that gives them a 2-year average and gives us time to support and grow our leaders. Our teacher compensation system design phase for teachers will be September through December. We will create the effectiveness framework, and that'll be in the 26-27 school year. So this school year, beginning in September through December, we'll establish that framework. January through May, that's when we will engage with a variety of stakeholders, again, collecting feedback along the way to, again, ensure that we have the correct performance metrics for our teachers. And so that will happen in 26-27 as well. February through March, we will actually put in place a what if. So we will look at the data from our middle of the year metrics, and we will look at where would teachers land on this compensation model. That'll happen also in 26-27. And then implementation for the teacher compensation, we will capture data, assign the effectiveness ratings beginning in 27-28. And then we will do that every year thereafter. We will also hold teachers harmless in 28-29 and 29-30 because we want to, again, ensure we are continuing to support and grow our teachers along the way. We want to ensure that we set them up for success in this system. Our compensation will fully align to the effectiveness level. We will look at our data before we set a year where we remove hold harmless for teachers until we know that the system is rigorous and that also it has equity and fairness for all of our teachers. So this is the timeline and the roadmap for Beaumont ISD, being able to really support and pay our highly effective teachers and to get high instruction in front of our kids. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. The question, will they have the traditional contracts as principals, year-to-year, or how is that going to work?
So for under strategic compensation, contracts are separate from that model. So they would continue to work with HR and they will remain on their contract. And Superintendent Massey, I don't know if you want to speak to that. I don't work under the contract piece, but they are separate pieces.
Yeah, the contract is separate. So contract is contract. They'll be under contract. If they're performing well, then obviously they're going to get paid also higher on that contract. If they're not performing well, then we probably won't keep them. So, I mean,
answer my question. That's okay.
They know that they actually have to do their job, and it doesn't mean that they have to show like significant, like blow it out of the water gains, but they have to contribute to the progress.
Right, like a head football coach, you don't win, you're out of there, right? Okay.
We'll give them some time, though. We want them to have time to grow.
Got you.
In this January or July through September for leaders and principals, and from January to May, engaging stakeholders and collecting feedback. So there will be people that will be speaking into their experiences to come up with some of like what is effective, defining some of those terms. It will be like teachers, principals, assistant principals, stakeholders that will be involved in that program as well.
Yes, we will have teachers represented from every campus. We will have leaders represented as well as district leaders supporting us in developing those metrics for our teachers.
So their voices will be heard.
Their voices will be included in this process.
How quickly will a teacher be able to experience that increase in salary?
So when we look up here, the compensation effectiveness ratings will be captured in 27, 28, and that will go in place for them in 28, 29. So the compensation for teachers would happen in 28, 29 based on their effectiveness level.
So that would be 2 years from now?
That would be 2 years from now.
Get it in. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Ms. Kent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are now moving on to our action items. Superintendent Massey.
The administration recommends the board approve the district vision of, in Beaumont ISD, every student will be known, supported, challenged, and prepared.
Okay, any questions?
I move to approve the BISD vision in BISD, Beaumont ISD. Every student will be known, supported, challenged, and prepared.
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Parker and seconded by Mr. Lewis to approve the district vision in Beaumont ISD. Every student will be known, supported, challenged, and prepared. Any further discussion or questions?
If I could just make a comment, this is our home, right? I was born and raised here, but a lot of us are here. And I know firsthand what it means to have teachers who know you, who support you and challenge you every single day. I know that. I know we still have teachers in the district now that stayed, and I'm very grateful for them supporting and knowing our students. And yeah, I think this is what we need. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Superintendent?
The administration recommends the board approve the following student outcome goals. Goal 1, the percentage of third grade STAR students who score meet grade level or above on STAR reading will increase from 27% in June 2026 to 65% by August 2031. And goal 2, the percentage of third grade students who score meets grade level or above on STAR math will increase from 23% in June 2026 to 60% by August 2031.
Okay, we saw a lot about that a little while ago. Any questions from the board? Mr. Lewis? You have a question? No question. Okay. Okay, do I have a motion?
I move to approve the student outcome goals as presented.
Any second?
I second.
Okay. It's been moved by Mr. Graves and seconded by Mr. Ibarra to approve the student outcome goals. Is there any further discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next item is the consideration and approval of board guardrails. I wanted to take just a quick second and explain guardrails for a little bit, because the wording is a little bit strange, at least it was for me whenever I was learning this process. So the term shall not is a very kind of strange but strategic wording related to both board guardrails and superintendent guardrails. So if you think of it, the way it was best described to me, and I understood it best, is if you think about it, if you order an Uber to go to Houston tomorrow, right, there's about 10 different ways to get to Houston. But you know for a fact that I-10 is closed that day, right? So you get in the Uber and you tell the Uber driver, I still want to get to Houston. The outcome is to get to Houston, but do not take Interstate 10, because I personally know that that's not going to work. The outcome is the same. The goals are still the same. And then you leave the autonomy and the decision-making to the Uber driver. You're not telling the Uber driver, take this specific route. You're not dictating how that's to be done, but you are allowing all but one option to take place within the framework of getting to Houston in an Uber. So that, in the same way, we're specifically outlining by a shall not statement for board guardrails and superintendent guardrails. So I thought it was important to understand because I didn't understand it several months ago, and now we're approving it. So I think it's important for the community to understand that's the framework and that's the association with how this works. So these are our potential board guardrails, assuming they're approved. The board either collectively or through the actions of individual board members shall not overlook the importance of monitoring and evaluating its own performance and the implementation of its decisions. Perform or appear to perform any of the expressed or delegated responsibilities of the superintendent, and shall not represent or appear to represent through their words or actions the voice of the entire board on matters that the board has not publicly adopted. Are there any questions related to board guardrails?
So I do, I guess, question with these guardrails specifically, are there certain behaviors that we as a board are going to limit ourselves or prohibit ourselves from doing? That way we don't interfere with operations. Me being an operations manager, I like to sometimes get in there, but are there behaviors that we are limiting ourselves to or prohibiting ourselves to ensure that we govern and not manage?
I think it's very important that we understand the lane in which we operate. So there's board work and there's superintendent work. That we oversee the superintendent through these guardrails and through this framework. And so in terms of how she gets to Houston as the Uber driver and her team gets to Houston as the Uber driver, that's, as long as we have these parameters in place, how we govern ourselves and how we govern and how we hold the superintendent and the district accountable, that's the delineation of tasks. And I think that's incredibly important, particularly from a governing body, so that we understand and the community understands what's board work and what's superintendent work. We're not meddling as a layman's terms.
We're not expected to, hey, Sandy, you need to go move this much money over here right now.
Every time we do something like that, it takes Sandy and others
Absolutely.
away from improving student outcomes.
And it's been very well defined what our job is. We've had a lot of clarity to that. TA made sure that we know what we can do and what we can't do. What's our job and what's Sandy's job. And I take that to heart because that's very, very important when people come up and ask you about things, the barbershop or HEB. I just politely, it's not my call. It's not I can't, you get with your supervisor. And that's the best way to handle that. It was made very plain to us because we had things it was not like that at parts of Beaumont. And we're not going down that road. It's very defined what her job is and what our job is.
And it's probably good that it's not
great.
my job.
It's not,
because I'm not an educational expert. Like none of us are. I mean, Desmond is. But I am not. Yeah, but I think we could all say over the last maybe 4 months or so with full confidence that Sandy is incredible at doing her job. And so when she recommends or says this is the direction, I'm in full support.
Absolutely.
And whether you've been in a classroom or you've been in a community meeting or you've watched a podcast or whatever, she's competent, she's like confident, but she's also really like engaging and wanting to help the community, but also teachers and students. And so for us, I think at least it should be like, I want to get behind her and I don't want to make the call, but I want us to help support that. And so kudos to you, but also I think in our heads, we're Team Sandy and Team BISD and Team Students.
And Team Sandy and her crew has a lot of work to do.
They got some work to do.
They have some work to do, and they're very competent in doing that, and that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Looking for the win.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I move to approve the Beaumont ISD board guardrails as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Is there a second?
Desmond Bridges, second that motion.
Okay. Has been moved by Mr. Parker and seconded by Mr. Bridges to approve the board guardrails. I think we've had plenty of discussion. Is there any more, though?
If I could
Okay.
just make the comment, I do feel very confident that Sandy, your team, your cabinet, and you are moving us in the right direction. You know, you've heard some of the questions I've had, and I've had questions that get answered before I can even ask them out. So I 100% feel confident that you will get us up and out. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on board guardrails? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. The next item for consideration is the approval of the proposed superintendent guardrails. Again, same structure related to the shall nots. At this time, I will turn it over to Superintendent Massey for the administration's recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. President. The administration recommends that the board approve the following superintendent guardrails. The superintendent shall not allow the use of non-district approved materials in any classroom. The superintendent shall not allow the number of D or F rated campuses to increase or remain the same. The superintendent shall not allow the number of ineffective teachers to increase or remain the same.
Okay, any questions or discussion? Sir?
I'm vocal today, aren't I?
Yeah, it's good. Go for it.
Well, I also want to make sure our community gets answers and hears from our superintendent. So with these guardrails, to kind of help us out a little bit, what are some key drivers, or rather some priorities that are reflected?
Well, I think Project Accelerate and both the AIM, Accelerated Instructional Model, are really going to be reflected in the board goals and in the guardrails. So there's no way for us to hit these goals. I don't believe there's a way for us to hit these goals without Project Accelerate, without the pre-K through second grade push to reading and math literacy. So to me, the things that we're putting in place show what we're doing. Also, the guardrails protects the curriculum from being all over the place. It helps us to align a district to a common thread. No student will go anywhere in the district and not have the right lesson in front of them the very next day, even if they change schools from one side to the other. They're going to get the same lesson they would have gotten. They're not going to be ahead or behind. They're going to be right on. And that's going to also provide equity across all schools. It doesn't matter if you're in a privileged area or an underprivileged area. You're going to get high-quality instruction, a great lesson, and have the opportunity to get a second teach on that lesson should you need it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the BISD superintendent guardrails as presented.
Second?
I second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Lewis and seconded by Mr. Parker to approve the superintendent guardrails. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a discussion and action to approve the voluntary separation agreement with former superintendent of schools. Okay, so the agreement with former superintendent of schools, Dr. Shannon Allen, the proposed agreement is the result of negotiations between Dr. Allen, the Texas Education Agency, the district, and the parties' various legal counsel. Is there a motion concerning this item?
I motion to approve this item properly.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. It has been moved by Mr. Graves and seconded by Mr. Parker to approve the voluntary separation agreement with former superintendent of schools. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, now we will move into the consent. We're now ready for consent. Does any board member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda for separate consideration? Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as written?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, any seconds?
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Ibarra and seconded by Mr. Lewis to approve the items on the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, the board will now enter into closed session for the second time to discuss agenda items posted on the closed session agenda and as authorized by the Open Meetings Act, specifically under Texas Government Code 551.076, .0761, and .079, security matters. The time is now 6:40 and we are convened in closed session. Thank you. Okay, the board is now reconvened in open session at 6:55 PM. There are no further action items resulting from closed session and no further business to come before the board. This meeting is adjourned at 6:56 PM. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Good job, Jeff.